Good morning, good morning, good morning. 8:10 a.m. January 5th, 2026. That was a long hiatus. I did trade. Being transparent there, I did trade. Actually, the ranges weren't bad. They weren't bad on some of these days that I thought would be horrendous. They weren't really bad. Now, Friday was a wild one. Ooh, that was a wild one. That was some volatility off that open. Boy, that was wild. NASDAQ really was hot, and then it turned out to be the laggard. So that was a wild day, and there was a big divergence we'll talk about in a little bit. Obviously, the U.S. basically taking over Venezuela, capturing Maduro. It's crazy. So now they have the largest oil reserves in the world. They're actually the oil that they get is heavy crude, so that takes more refining. And then this morning, so this basically, I'm not gonna get too much into it, but basically, China was buying Venezuelan oil basically for a discount. I think in exchange for loans, and now that's going to change. But U.S. taking over, a lot of their oil production has slowed down in Venezuela. Now we're going to pick that back up. So now originally this is going to add supply to oil, which generally will take prices of crude a little lower, right? More supply, you take the crude prices usually go a little lower. We opened up a little lower, but since then crude is up. Now a lot of the beneficiaries of maybe refining this oil or whatever using these reserves, like maybe a Chevron, is up 6%, almost 6.5% this morning. And I was explaining to one of my good friends, Rosita, she was talking about crude stocks, and I said there's not usually a one-to-one relationship in crude futures to like oil stocks. And it's clearly shown today where crude is up 0.87 and Chevron's up 6 in it, like I said, over 6%. Right? Makes sense, right? So that's what's going on there. A lot of news. Um, this market is kind of like in a real ugly area, to say the least. If I looked at the sectors over the weekend, they're just kind of all over the place. Technology specifically is in like a mess. Actually, semis got love and industrials, but then like it's just not. You could just tell the way the sectors are moving, why the market is just maybe disarray is the wrong word, but if you just quickly look at like a daily chart of the QQQ, um, very telling when you have like a flat 50-day moving average, and that just really tells the tale of what we've been doing, right? So over this time period, and a little more, I've kind of dove into, which I didn't think I'd ever would, dove into like ICT or smart money concepts. I never was like against it. I just never went into it in depth. And I have to say, it kind of changed the way I look at markets when I'm going to put a trade on. Not how I look at it entirely, but it gave me like a framework, I guess, of like how to repeat certain things. And I've been doing it every day. I've been trading this way pretty much the whole month of December. And what I have to say is it's pretty insane how when I dove into the concepts, and like I said, there was nothing um, that I didn't really was familiar with, but when it's put into like a framework, what you can repeat and see in just candlesticks, It's pretty crazy. It's pretty. I know a couple members of my community when I'm streaming. I'm just doing some streaming, but just not publicly. And pretty much to see how these fair value gaps are respected, pretty insane. And all this terminology that I know now, and I can understand it. Because before it would be like, I don't know what this guy's talking about. Inducement and encroachment and all this stuff. Like I said, it kind of puts stuff in a framework, and that's what makes things repeatable. And for myself, I'll be honest with you, I still love bookmap, I still love footprint charts. They have a place. But when they are not giving me an edge, right, it's very noisy to sometimes, and I don't always use them like this, but I'm saying like in a footprint chart or a bookmap, right? There's a lot going on. You have, bids, resting bids and offers. You have delta and absorption. You could see a bunch of that stuff, but it doesn't. It's very discretionary of what you're seeing. Sometimes it's an edge when you can go, oh my God, look at that. Look what that order just did, or look at that. It just hit this liquid and bounced off, or look at all that absorption. Definitely can give you that look. But I'm not going to lie, like if you have a framework that just uses candlesticks, to me, that's something you're always going to see. You're not going to have to look at delta and try to go, is that something I should lean on? Is that not? I think it makes it a little more simpler. Is what I'm trying to say. So you're not really going to see. You'll see it a little bit today in my analysis, but you're going to more see it more in my intraday analysis when I'm going to put a trade on. I still go by my internals. That is my bread and butter. I still, the way I look at the market, pretty much, my long bias or short bias is still the same way. It's just now when I'm going to execute something, I have more of a framework. And I know some of the members of my community have seen it. Maybe they can speak on it. I'm not sure if they're listening right now to see, like, whoa. I know one in particular, my friend Rosa, that comes in here. She said that, wow, this is a lot easier to understand than maybe typically how I would talk about the market previously. Okay? So we'll get into it a little bit. Like I said, it's more for execution of when I'm going to look to trade or not to trade. And it's literally nothing different. I'm going to look for a pullback, but instead of looking for a pullback into a delta outlier or something like that I'd like to see in bookmap, which I haven't seen much, this is just basically using candlesticks to determine what I want to do. Okay? Now, hope everybody had a good Christmas and New Year. Let's make this 2026 great. All right, now let's get right into it. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. I use market profile and volume profile to find structure in the markets. Among supply and demand, gamma exposure levels, the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. That is my edge. Okay, also use market internals, anchor VWAPs, my weekly expected move, bookmap, and now the help of whatever you want to call it, ICT, smart money concepts, when I'm executing. Okay, so not much has changed for me. There's a framework there. Okay. Now, hopefully, you can join me every morning. All right. Do this every morning. Give you the market story, the market news. Basically, just the story of the markets, leaders and laggards. Okay. Followed by a bunch of technical analysis. And then I give you my long and short trade scenarios in the ES and the NASDAQ futures. All right. If you want more in-depth coverage, you're going to join my Discord. That's Confluence Trading. Go to the YouTube homepage, click on the link, and sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Okay. Now, like I said, the smart money or the ICT concepts is just really more execution, right? I still use my market internals, and I'm going to show you in a sec what was showing me on Friday. Okay, but I think we should get right into the watch list here because we got stuff going on here. Silver is catching a bid. Silver pulled back, but now it's up 5.53%. We're back up to almost $75 on spot silver. Okay, the VIX is up 4.89. So the VIX is up even when the market's been moved up. Bitcoin. Bitcoin's over 90K. It's at 93. It's up 3.42%. Gold up 2.12%. Ethereum up 1.16%. Crude, like I said, started out down a little, but now is up 0.84. Nasdaq's up 0.63. The dollar's up 0.39. The ES is up 0.23. The Russell's up 0.06. 10-year yield is basically flat at 4.18 yield. The Dow is down 0.08. And 30-year bonds pretty much flat. Okay. Moving on to the Max 7 Plus. Yeah, Coinbase, you got the Bitcoin proxy. Coinbase is up 4.17%. AMD up 2.88. Broadcom up 1.66. Tesla's up 1.46. Nvidia's up 1.41. Laggards here. Netflix continues to fall, down to 0.27. Apple down 0.34. Berkshire Hathaway down 0.37. Eli Lilly down 0.69. Moving on to the top sectors here. All right, Chevron, like I said before, well, it's kind of pulling back a little bit now, but it was up almost 6.5%, up basically 6%. Palantir Defense in the military here, that's probably getting some love as well, 3.43. Then you got Exxon up 2.81. Oracle's up almost 2%. The mining, okay, up 1.36. GEV Vernova up almost 2%. Caterpillar's up 0.77. Now, laggards. Johnson & Johnson. Walmart down 1.3. Goldman Sachs down 0.49. Visa down 0.63. Uber down 0.68. Let's look at a granular list here. Who's getting some love today? Valero, it's energy. No surprise there. They're up 7.76%. ConocoPhillips up 5.69. This is all energy. Okay. Oil-related stocks. Iris Energy up 5.32. Marathon Petroleum up 4.76. All right. Sorry about that. Who is lagging today? There's not much laggards here, folks. Omnicrom Group, I believe that is down 1.87. That's nothing to really talk about. Okay. Now we're moving on to sectors here. The leader, no shock here, is up 3.88%. That's your energy. All right. That's your energy sector, up 3.88, followed by semiconductors, right, up 1.79, followed by technology, 0.85. That's now energy does not move a market. Let me make that clear. It does not. It's only 2.8% of the market cap weight in the S&P 500. It does not move the market. So even though energy's up, that does not move the market. It will not really affect the market. That could be up and the rest of the market could be down. The whole market will go down. Okay. Now, as far as laggards go, you got real estate down 0.20, financials down 0.29, healthcare is down 0.52, 0.5%. That's in turn Eli Lilly's down 0.75. Okay. All right. We can move on to, let's go to that economic calendar. Why don't we do that? Okay. All right, so today we have ISM manufacturing PMI, ISM manufacturing employment at 10 a.m. All right, Wednesday we have ISM services PMI, George jobs. We've got a Fed speaking, that's after the market closes. Thursday you have jobless claims, but then Friday you got non-farm payrolls and unemployment, and Michigan consumer sentiment with some Feds. Okay, that's our week there. Now if we go to the juice. Is Trump doing anything today? Let's see. Trump participates in policy meeting at 3:30. Okay, let's see. The only thing I saw Trump say on Venezuela is we aren't afraid of boots on the ground. Okay. We already talked about with the Venezuela takeover. Okay, let's go into some stock news here. Let's see if we can get a little summary here. If we can't, that's fine. We already just went over the watch list. Okay, here we go. I went over some of these already, but let's just get a little summary here. We already talked about this. Chevron, blah, blah, blah. Let's see why some semis are moving here. Shares of NVIDIA were slightly higher, with the artificial intelligence darling CEO Jensen Huang due to deliver an address at a closely watched tech industry event. Rival AMD, whose head Lisa Su is also slated to speak. I guess this is at the CES. All right. I believe that's in Vegas. Don't quote me on that. I believe. All right. That's what's going on there. Now, let's get over to some more stock news. We know Venezuela's Maduro due in court. Loyalists send message to Trump. Chevron U.S. refiners share surge after Trump's move to hoard Venezuelan oil. Let's see. Investors face more geopolitical whiplash from Trump's Venezuela gamble. Let's see. Investors may go value hunting in 2026 as AI rally matures. And let's see. U.S. oil company shares jumped as investors bet that President Donald Trump's move against Venezuela's leadership could give American firms greater access to the country's vast oil reserves. Oil prices, however, were little changed, as ample global supplies continued to weigh on the market despite uncertainty surrounding Venezuelan flows. All right. I know they also have a lot of gold and silver as well, Venezuela. Rare earths. Let's see how Asia did. In Asia, Japan's Nikkei closed at more than 2-month high on the first trading day 2026, led by chip-related stocks, probably why semis are getting love. Chinese equities also closed higher, with the Shanghai Composite Index topping the 4,000 level for the first time in nearly 3 months. Okay, maybe this could be why Eli Lilly's down. Let's see. Novo Nordisk, the company will offer its 1.5 and 4 milligram Wegovy weight loss pills at $149 per month to self-paying patients in the United States from January 5th, it said. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration on December 22nd approved the pill, giving Novo Nordisk a leg up as it looks to regain lost ground from rival Eli Lilly. The semi-glutide pills contain the same active ingredient as injectable Wegovy and Ozempic and will be sold under the brand name Wegovy. Okay? That's what we got going on there. Okay? We could just look at some upgrades, downgrades today. Let's see who's getting American Tower. Arista Networks upgrade. Who else here? Coinbase got an upgrade. CoreWeave got an upgrade. Duolingo got an upgrade. Interesting. A lot of upgrades today. IBM upgrade. Intel upgrade. Marvell. Semi upgrade. Motorola. Sentinel-1 cybersecurity. Interesting. Is there downgrades today? Let's see. There is downgrades today. Oh, Adobe downgraded. Domino's Pizza downgraded. Netflix downgraded. Interesting. Netflix got a downgrade. PayPal downgraded again. Jeez. Let's see. Raytheon got a downgrade. Interesting. Okay. I think we're good there. All right. I think we can move on. I think we're ready for some market internals recap here. I think we're ready for a market internals recap. Just show you the big divergence that was there on Friday. I almost, and like again, I said, a good friend of mine, Rosita, was with me live this day, and I was telling her about this long. And I told her like I said, this should go higher. Now, the reason why, okay, I want to show you something that was like you don't see this a lot. Markets selling off like this, right? And the market sold off like that. But you had Valdez, okay, in the NYSE exchange and the Nasdaq exchange. Volume going into up stocks versus down stocks was 2.34 to 1. That is bullish in the NYSE, and then 2.05 to 1 in the Nasdaq exchange. That is bullish. You can see the ADDs. This just means more stocks were advancing to their Wednesday's close, prior close. Okay? So nothing was weak in the overall market. Now, how do I see that down here? Well, this white line on this weighted AD indicator is equal weight. That just tells me if all the sectors were not weighted, they were equal, what were they doing? Well, they were trending up the whole day. This kind of backs up these numbers. Okay, but our market moves on market cap weight, and that's represented by the bars here on this graph. Okay, they were negative almost all day until they got a little positive here, right? But the equal weight stayed strong. So what I said when I was, like I said, I had a little private thing when I was live with a couple of my community members. I was saying either market cap's going to take the equal weight down with it, or the equal weight's going to bring up the market cap, and that's what ended up happening, and we just couldn't go lower. Okay, and that's where this move came in. That move came in. Okay, like I said, I was very close to having a long here. That's another thing I'd change a little bit. When I execute, I'm looking at a 1 minute chart now. And like I said, I just want to see certain things develop. It's really not very noisy for me because I'm not looking at it like every little candlestick's an opportunity. I'm looking for something to form for me. Okay? But this was the big divergence. I kept talking about this. Okay? And that's why the market couldn't go lower. Okay? Now, let's move on to the daily charts, which don't tell you much. It's just that we're kind of in a nasty muck. Okay, so I'm going to bring up those daily charts. Give me 1 sec while I do that. All right, here's our good old SPY. I mean, it's really just not a great chart. I don't have any conviction right now. Day trade I might, but not in the daily chart. You can see a flat 20-day simple moving average, a slightly rising 50-day. And that just tells the story. A flat 9 EMA daily, right? It just tells the story that we're not doing much. I mean, look at this consolidation. We dropped, we came up, we dropped back into this consolidation. Right? So we did break Wednesday's lows on Friday, right? But then we closed back inside the range, right? So we basically held the previous week's range. We tried to break it. We could. Okay, where are we at now? 684.80s. So 684.80s. We're right around here. We're like at the upper third of Friday's range. In futures, you'll see it. We're still inside this range of Wednesday. I'm sorry, Friday. We'll see that with futures. So let's go to futures. Okay, now let's go to futures. Here we go. Just a mess, really. Okay, had a couple down days, right? Came back to the 50-day moving average. Okay, and we're just at the 20-day moving average. And you can see this big doji candle, right? So it's just not a pretty market right now. Intraday, you always have opportunities, but this is not the best. Now, what would I anticipate from today? Well, if we just swept this day's lows, closed here, right? Now, we're here. I would say, and see we have some tail here, we could see, just anticipate maybe hitting today's highs. Anything can happen. But this is kind of telling me you swept this day. Now you're up into the session, the mid. I probably the path of least resistance is this level up here. Okay. which would be around 69.39. Okay, let's look at the Qs. Like I said, I don't have any conviction in this market as far as like a swing play. I really don't. Okay, you can see we're just in this big wedge here. You can see the Nasdaq was relatively weaker because look, we actually closed and made a new weekly range, hit this uptrend. Okay, but still we closed below the 50, so that Nasdaq's looking weaker. Okay, Nasdaq's definitely looking weaker. You can see the 50-day is more flat. All right, where are we now? 617. So they had a nice move right now. So we're at 617.23. We're closer to the midpoint of Friday's range, but still in the middle of the not a good not a good area to be in. just not just really not in a good area. Okay, now let's look at the Nasdaq futures. Okay, so what a candle, right? Because you basically swept these highs previous session, swept the lows, closed here, but now you're kind of pushing back up. It's a mess. It's a mess. Below the 50, the 20 days actually starting to slope down. But like I said, it's very messy. Very messy. Just to give you a quick look at, let's see the technology sector, which drives our market really. And look at how gross that is. Look at this market. You're up, you're down, you're sideways basically. You're just sideways. Remember, this is almost, what is it now? 34%, almost 35% of the market cap in the S&P 500, and it moves sideways. Okay? It just moves sideways. Now, other notables that have had a nice run is financials, I believe. Let's see. Maybe let's see. They had a nice run, but they pulled back. So financials pulled back. XLI, that's who had a decent run. Yes. So they're going towards all-time highs. See. So it's like there's a lot of things going on here. Even communications, they not so weak, but they kind of pushed down. The one of the big laggards was the XLY, which is your Amazon, your Tesla. That kind of had fell from grace here. That pulled back. Okay, and healthcare had a little pullback as well. Okay, that's moved sideways. I thought that pulled back. Trying to see here, what else did I see over the weekend? Just a lot of like, not much to talk about. Oh, semis actually, which XLK, semis are in XLK, right? But I always like to break out semis. Now look at semis. Remember I just showed you XLK was kind of like doing nothing? Semis actually had a nice day. Or have a nice chart. Look, they're like broke out. So, like I said, that makes this market very hard to read it and like why it's up, it's down, nothing's moving all together. Okay. All right, now let's look at the breadth here. Breadth of the market. Now, you can see here the breadth did reach up to like 64%. We're over their 50-day moving average. We dropped all the way down to like 50 and closed though about 57. So we're still middling. But that's the beautiful thing about this breadth is that regardless of what I just showed you with the sectors, right? The breadth tells us the story. 50% basically of stocks are above their 50-day moving average. So that means 50% are below them, which makes a middling market, right? Makes a lot of sense. Okay. Now, we're going to go into the hourly chart. This is where some of this smart money and stuff, as I just added a couple things to my charts. Okay. They're very simple. All right. Let me show you here. This is the hourlies. I'll just point out right now what I changed. I mean, not really what I changed, but just things that I look at now that I always looked at, but I just like to have them on my chart now. Okay, so here's our ES, right? And so what I do now, and just to put them on my charts, I mean, I can always visually do them, but in smart money and ICT, on certain liquidity, right? You're going to hear me say that a lot going forward. There's buy side liquidity, which is above price, sell side liquidity, which is below price, right? And basically, they call them draws on liquidity, which could also be fair value gaps and stuff like that. Anyway, I just mark important swing lows and important swing highs. I do them on a 4 hour and a 1 hour. So those are these rays that you can see. These white rays are important liquidity levels. Okay, and so I do this intraday as well. And what I love about that is we're going to add one here actually, because this is hourly. Now this became a swing high right here. Okay, so I'm going to put one right here. So that's now a liquidity point. Okay, that's what you would call that a buy side liquidity. That's 69.25. All right, so it doesn't mean like they're like support and resistance, which they kind of are. They're swing highs, swing lows, right? And the reason why they're important, and what makes a swing high, where you have a lower high and a lower high surrounding a high, that makes it a swing high. All right, same thing with a swing low. It's the opposite. You have a low surrounded by a higher lows, higher lows. That makes a swing low. That's it. And the reason why they're important is because most people, if let's say you short here, they're going to have a stop here. Most people who went long here are going to have their stop here. So what does that bring? Liquid. Okay. And you want to know, and I want to look at and be active at these liquid areas. That's basically it. The other thing I did add to some of my charts, I do have fair value gaps now. You'll see these kind of purple boxes or yellow boxes, and they really do get respected. It's pretty crazy. Never thought I'd be charting those things, but they really do get respected. And I don't have to go in and educate today on what all those things mean or why they work. They're just on my charts now. Okay. So another thing that I always did, right? But part of ICT is you always want to see the market structure. Okay. So real important here, right? Is you always want to see the trend, right? And I can pretty much see it clearly. But a cool thing that you can always use this path tool, right? And you can really just see, you connect all the swing lows, the swing highs, and you can just chart out what the trend has been, right? Like you go to a swing high, to a swing low, swing high, swing low, back to a swing high, back to the swing low, and back to the swing high. And now this might be the next swing low. I don't know, right? But if you pull this away, right, and we just move this over, it's pretty cool because this gives you a good just looking at the trend. All right, so that's the trend, right? And so if I take this, right, and we just move it over here, it's pretty nice schematic basically of the trend, right? So what's the trend, right? Every swing high, swing low, right? And you just want to see the structure of the market. Now this is pretty ugly. You can see downtrend, right? And in this case, we did break that swing high, but it couldn't sustain. And then look, you broke this swing low, and now we're making another swing low, right? So in this area right now, right, you can say that swing high, swing high, swing high, and the trend is still lower, right? So that's going to make my bias right now still to the downside in the, like, say, 1 hour chart. Okay. So it's a nice way to basically just look at the trend and go, okay, if you want to do that, you do it, right? I like how that makes it feel, right? But this is pretty ugly. Okay. Now, of course, I still use my most traded price of the month. That's right here. So that also, in order to break this trend, you need to take this level out, right? So that's going to be hard to do. Big supply zone there. So like I said, my bias, whatever we even do in here, if we react to this liquid level and we go back under here, that's probably a short. Target this liquidity, then you target this liquidity. Okay. Now, moving on to the NASDAQ. Okay. Moving on to the NASDAQ. It's a very different story. And that trend is ugly. It's not even really a trend. You had a downtrend, broke it. You broke this swing high, and I was like, oh, okay. We had a market structure shift here. You made a higher high right over this swing high. And I was like, okay, it just has to hold here. We're in ultimate balance as well. Remember, I'm not getting rid of my most traded prices. They are still important. Okay? So in your NASDAQ, we came down into this big demand zone and found buyers. Okay? We created a big fair value gap here, bearish fair value gap. That's that purple box. We're inside that fair value gap right now. We have a big supply zone ahead of us, and we have ultimate balance at 257s. 257s is your bull bear line. Okay? This trend is very ugly. It's, like I said, very ugly. And you have this big candle here that we're in the middle of. Ugh, not a good area to be in. Just not. You have some demand here. Now, liquid points here. You have a swing high here, right? A little above the 258s. You have a swing low here. It's like equal lows here, about the 254.50s and change. And then you have this swing low here, which was last week's lows. So those are all levels I'm going to pay attention to. Now there's a new level here, so we'll put that on the screen. All right, we have a new level here, right here. That's a swing high now. Well, I mean, it's the hourly close didn't happen yet, but I'm going to put it there right now anyway. Now this could get broken, and that might not be a swing, right? This could be a swing low. I don't know yet. I'm going to put it there right now, and then I'll change it later. Okay? So this is really ugly. I'm being honest with you. Very ugly charts. Right? Ultimate balance is here. Right? We're in the middle of Wednesday, a Friday session. Just this is all the overnight trading. That's so not great trading here. And then you moved up. Month to date anchor VWAPs right here. So this is not great. All right, you're trading in a mess here. Okay, so I don't know what's gonna happen. All right, so we know our 257s. Underneath it, have to have a bearish bias. So that's what I'm looking for today. Big supply zone in here. Okay, and we're inside a bearish fair value gap right now in this candle, and you just have to in these fair value gaps. They're kind of similar to single prints. It's like if they're resistant, then it's resistant, or they can get run through. But you just have to gauge what the market's doing with them. Okay, that's the hourly charts. So you'll hear that type of stuff from me going forward about the liquidity. And some, like I said, I only chart some of the fair value gaps, right? So now, as far as moving on here, we're going to go over to our market profile, volume profile, and just look at our ES here. And like I said, still love this view. Here's our market profile, volume profile. Okay. This still tells me, you know, the liquid points will stay on my 1 hour charts. I don't want to make my charts too crazy, right? All right, but we'll just go over some levels here now. Now, this happens to be the most traded price of this year. That's not very significant yet because we're just into the year. All right, so I'm not going to say that this is significant, okay? But we do have some levels to talk about. Happens to be the overnight lows here. That lines up with the most traded price. Ooh, let's make that thicker. So it does. This box just happens to be important, okay? Because it's the overnight lows, month to date anchored VWAP, and most traded price. So that becomes a support, okay? That becomes a support. So I think what you want to do, okay, is really going to trade between these two levels. Now you have the most traded price of the month here. That is your 69.30s. All right, that lines up with, you have almost equal highs here of your previous overnight session and Friday session. So that's one of those liquidity points. Okay. And then we have this. Notice how this bullish fair value gap from the past, the market dipped its toe in it and found buyers right here. Okay. So I'm going to mark off this. Okay. So I think there's a good shot today. We test Friday's highs. Okay. I think there's a good shot. You also have kind of like a poorish high here. That's a liquidity point, right? That's what we talk about. The market seeks out liquidity. So that's going to be drawn there. It's going to be. Okay. It might not be pretty getting up there, but I believe we probably get up there. Now, what does the market do when we get there? I don't know. I really don't. Okay. So remember, we closed here on Friday. Okay. If we take this out, next liquidity point is Friday's lows. Okay. So let's map this out and do a scenario. We will start off with the bull side. Okay. Oh, let me break out the session. Okay. Like I said, this is the areas you want to be active in. Okay. So if the draw on liquidity, which just means that the market's going to be attracted to this liquidity level or the overnight low. Okay. That's where you want to be active. Now, what could happen? What could happen? Well, you're in a supply zone right now, and it's at least a 6 hour, which is stronger because there's a thicker border. Okay. So, one or two things can happen. We can pull back right here into this overnight low, most traded price, the close of Friday, and let's just say we get some buying, get a pullback. You're going to hit the most traded price of the month, and then you're going to try to tap that 69.39 level. Okay. And see what we do here. If you get follow through, this could run up to the most traded price of the week. Okay, around the 69.50s. Then you don't have anything until this bearish fair value gap up here around 69.61s. I don't know if that happens, right? You would have a market structure shift. You would have a trend. You would break the downtrend if you do that. Okay. Now we could also just push up, hold, and move up as well. Okay. That's what I'm looking at there. Now, as far, oh boy, let's go back there. Let's go back. as far as the bear side. Remember, I'm a little more biased to the short side based on structure, right? Based on structure. So, if I'm a short, what am I going to look for? Well, if I feel like the market's going to be drawn to that liquidity, probably want to see this liquidity get tested. If we put in a tail, right, and we fail, this is the ICT term, displace above this level, right, and we come back in, right, we put in a lower high, this could be a move back to where? The liquidity here, to the overnight lows. Okay. Now, this is pretty important. If you were to lose the overnight lows, which is also be the most traded price of Friday, you should get follow through. Okay, you should, and you should go down to at least Friday's lows. That you do have a big bullish fair value gap down here, but that's the difference, right? Like if I am bearish, I'm not going to be like, I'd obviously take profit here, but this market can move down through it. Okay. Now you could just take profit here. That'd be a great trade as well. So that's what I'm looking for as far as a short. Now, if you're a little more conservative, right, you're going to want to see the reaction to the overnight lows. Maybe you put a lower high in, test it, lower highs, then you can go attack this Friday's lows. Okay? Now, let's move on to the NASDAQ. NASDAQ, remember, has different structure. It was very strong. That was a big bull trap on Friday. That was very strong move. Broke the downtrend and just almost like, wow, if this keeps going, this is going to be a monster. Notice it went into this bearish for value gap and found selling. Right? That's what I'm saying. When I started charting these, I'm like, whoa, I wouldn't have had that on my chart prior. So what we're doing now, we're moving up a little bit. So let's look at some levels here. Now we know we have liquid here, right? We know we do. And there's a big demand, a supply zone here, big. I think this is a 12-hour, right? Right up in here. We have a bearish for value gap as well, starting right here, that we're still in it. This makes it, to me, not like a very messy chart like I was saying before. We're above the midpoint of Friday. Okay. Now, a little different here is, remember, I've checked these overnight inventories. We opened here. We only have this much short to this much long, so we're pretty much 90% net long in the overnights. Okay. We found support in this demand zone. Remember, this is at least a 6-hour, 8-hour, 12-hour demand zone that we found support. We closed here. Okay. So, what am I going to look at here? We have a demand zone here, right here. Okay. So, remember right now, as long as we stay under ultimate balance, 257, you have to think bias bearish. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have an intraday trade. Right? I don't have to be married to that because I think this chart's very messy. And of course, if you're scalping, right? Like me, I'm not scalping a point, but like if I'm going to scalp, I trade mainly ES. But like if I'm going to mainly scalp or something, like I'll look for, like if I'm looking for a smaller move, 4 or 5 point, I'm not looking for points, like a point, right? Or 10. Like this, I don't know how this market's going to move today. But if I feel like, hey, I know I can get a pullback here, or I know like based on internals we should fall 4 or 5 points, I'll take it. Okay. So levels to look at. All right, right here. This is a good one. Overnight lows match up with the close, and you have this demand here with the overnight most traded price. Okay. You also have the most traded price of Friday down here. You lose this price right here. That's about 254, 390s or so. You're probably going to go and test that Friday's low. just because the sheer volume that was there, and we're still. Um, Hold on a second, everybody. Give me 1 second. Alrighty. So, what else do we have? We're at the overnight highs right now. Now, this is the 24-hour most traded price. All right. So, usually you don't cut through that like a hot knife through butter. So, I would expect us to maybe hang around here a little bit. You do have the supply zone. We're in a bearish for value gap. Remember, the 257s are here. So, you do have this swing high up here. And I'm going to say this is the area to pay attention to. Okay. And you have your demand zone here with the Friday's lows. And I think that's all we need. All right. And let's just break it out. Okay. And let's just get right into scenarios and I can get everybody out of here. If there's anybody here with me. Hopefully there are. I know I haven't done videos in a while. But it's like getting on a bike. Okay. So, coming into here. Would I say a long looks amazing from this point on? No. It doesn't. All right. But if I am long, and let's get the scenario. I don't know if I put this up, and I probably did, but I'm going to put it up again. What I'm going to say here is this. All right. I need a pullback here. Right. So if I'm going to get long, let this market come back down, test this demand zone, test this area. Okay. And if we get some higher lows, then I'm going to look to try to hit 257s and then try to hit that liquidity around the 258s. Okay. That's what I'm looking for if I was to be long. Now, if we drop down here into this demand zone, depending, I think we'd be pretty weak. I don't know how much conviction I'd have to be long. Now, again, you could scalp it, but I think this would be the best bet. I don't like a long up in this area. You're still in a bearish or value gap. You still have a big supply zone here, and you have the ultimate balance here. I don't like it. Okay, so that's about it for short longs. All right, now as far as shorts, I think that's the better play. Okay, I think it's the better play. You're in a fair value bearish, a bearish for value gap. You have a big supply zone up here. You have the 257 ultimate balance, right? So if you continue up higher, you could fail right here in the supply, but I would want to look to how it reacts to 257. If it fails to reach that level, right, and you reject and you get lower highs, this is your move. And you're going to move back down into this demand, and you're probably going to test overnight lows, 25406s. If you drop there, I would definitely think your next move would be you drop through this most traded price of Friday. You're going to hit Friday's lows and try to go lower. Okay? I think that's a nice move. Now, if the market comes up here, pushes up into the supply, I don't think this will be easy. Okay? And you hit it, right? I mean, there's another supply right above it and gets rejected and puts a lower high in. Well, you could target the 257s, but this would be a mighty fall if the market couldn't hold that level and you could go down. So that's my scenarios for today. Trying to keep them simple for you. All right. Please smash the like button if you enjoyed that analysis. That'd mean a lot to me. All right. And as always, join me every morning. I'll give you the market story, market news, the economic calendar, leaders and laggards, and just gave you a bunch of technical analysis, and I gave you long and short trade scenarios in the ES and the NASDAQ futures. Okay. Now, if you want more in-depth coverage, you will join my Discord. That's Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link and sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Okay. Now, everybody, hope everybody has a great day. All right. Remember, no trades to trade. It's Monday after a couple holiday weeks. Like I said, right now where we are is typical Monday. Right? And I need to see some of those liquidity levels played with in order for me to really have some conviction. Okay? So I'm probably going to sit back a little bit and let the story unfold. And who knows if I have a trade or not. Okay? But if I don't see you in my Discord, I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. All right, everybody.